but this is Beckanne Sisk. She's a principal dancer with Ballet West. So, Beckanne, I figured I'll just dive into some of these questions and we'll just take it from there. Obviously, a lot of dancers struggle with obstacles on their journey from pre-professional to professional career. I would love to hear of any challenges or obstacles that you may have encountered and how you feel you've since overcome them.
So one of my main ones I would say was I've never been like much of a go-getter. So I in school that didn't help me out very much, and
Mhm.
especially job when I got older. Um, I would also like I was too insecure to work on the things that I really needed to work on. Like for instance, I had the flexibility. I could do adagio and I could do pirouettes. But
Sure.
like petit allegro especially did not come naturally to me at all. But I
Mhm.
refused to work on it because I was embarrassed to show them something. So I think that's been my biggest obstacle because still sometimes I find myself in company class and I don't want to deal with this very well. So I'm
Yeah.
still working on that, but you have to be able to get better. You have to work on the things that you're not so good at and really get out of your comfort zone. So I feel like being in a company and being pushed has forced me to work on those things.
Yeah, I think that's really interesting. It's like very somewhat refreshing to hear someone at your level in as a dancer to actually I this for lack of a better phrase, come clean about not not wanting or I guess being embarrassed by what you see as being flaws in your dancing.
Yeah, yeah.
Mhm. So, Beccann, in regards to food and nutrition, a lot of dancers struggle with body image related issues throughout their dance career. I'm very curious to hear how you have managed to keep a positive relationship with food and with your body.
So I feel like I have tried, especially growing up. So I moved out to Salt Lake City and I joined the second company when I was 17. So I feel like my body was still changing and I was, like going through a lot during that time. It was a huge move for me. And so I think then joining the second company and working these long days, I realized like at first it was more like I didn't know what was going to help me. And I went through a phase where I wasn't eating enough. So I had just I realized like I was in a run of Sleeping Beauty for the first time and I couldn't get through it. I feel like it's taken so many trial and errors.
Mhm. Absolutely. And just the fact that you were 17, at 17, like you said, our body is still changing. And you're also, I assume your mind is very much focused on the fact that you just moved to a new area. You're now joined a second company. You're probably just not thinking about how should how should I incorporate like food into me being an athlete.
Right. And I wasn't very educated either on
Right.
period. Like I just didn't know.
Dancers don't realize how beneficial eating smaller, more frequent meals throughout their day might be. Like, so many dancers will have like a big breakfast, big dinner, and then have these multiple smaller snacks throughout the day to kind of keep up their energy levels without really weighing them down.
Uh-huh.
So, was there ever a time in your professional career where you started to realize that food was impacting your ability on stage?
Yeah, when the first time dancing Sleeping Beauty, the full length, I wasn't eating enough.
Yeah.
So was I had to figure out, what does my body need? Like what's gonna help. So you just have to
Right.
write things for yourself. And that took me, I would say, years of
Yeah, sure. Sure. Definitely learning from experience. And I think it's really important to realize that protein, carbohydrates, fats, they're all playing a role in your dancing. And it's important for other dancers to realize that incorporating all three of these macronutrients in those meals and snacks is only going to benefit your performance. So, what happened when you were just not eating enough and really experiencing low levels on your energy, obviously that didn't help you, and enough where you remember that being a huge obstacle.
Uh-huh.
What is the plan now, being that we're still in the pandemic?
So we're still, I mean, Ballet West is very hopeful. Like, they do not want to cancel things until we absolutely have to. Like, our goal is to start maintenance classes next week. We'll be in like different pods, and you'll be with this pod every day for, I'm not sure, just for the foreseeable future for now. So we're going to be in all, you'll be with one teacher.
What have you been doing since then, or since March, I would say, just to, what has been taking up your days? Obviously we're not performing, so what's taking up most of your time now?
So what really took up a lot of the time was we decided to start redoing like the outside of our house, and we've been working
Cool.
hard, like yard work, all that stuff that we don't have time for. That's been it. But I would say, like, for myself, I'm not a role model for like stay in shape during this time. I have a hard time staying motivated if I don't have a deadline. It's been really hard. I would say I just started to get a little more motivated in the last month. Because I feel like there was, like I could see the end of the tunnel in a way, like it was beginning to look hopeful, and being able to get back in the studios, but like just being back in there has like helped me so much.
Yeah, definitely. Honestly, Beckanne, I think it's very humbling to hear you say that you have been struggling to stay motivated. I can definitely relate to that in regards to, I don't like virtual dancing. I just, dancing at home to me, it just doesn't, dance is such a mental thing for me that it just doesn't do the same. I think it's really humbling to hear again that, and for other dancers to hear that, pushing and pushing and pushing yourself might not be practical in a time like now.
Yeah. I mean, we're all going to get back in shape. It's going to happen. So I've just sort of been like, there's no need for me to, if I want to, I will, but I'm not going to like be miserable and make when I just really don't want to.
Yeah. No, I love hearing this, honestly, because I think it makes me feel better, honestly, because I really do struggle with the motivation. I think a lot of dancers do, especially because we're in a very unknown situation. It's not like you just have an injury and you're sitting out for a certain period of time. We have no control over this situation. So it's scary, and it can be very hard to actually find motivation throughout it. So I think it's really refreshing to hear that if you don't have the motivation, just be patient. Like, we will down the road get into the studio and be able to work on our technique and get back into shape. So I love hearing that. Can you walk us through a day of how you have been fueling your body, even if it's for yard work, to fuel your body?
I just sort of let myself do whatever I wanted. It was more just, I'd wake up. I love breakfast, so I always have a big breakfast. Lunch is usually, like whatever's left over in the fridge or something I'll have. And then dinners also, big dinners for me.
It sounds to me like during this time you are more able to tune into your body, not planning so much, but thinking about like what you want in the moment. So it's more intuitive in your habits.
Yeah, and honestly, I have found that when I'm not exercising, I'm much more hungry. I'm sure there's probably some reason for that.
Actually, no, there is a reason for that. I'm going to tell you what the reason is. There's a reason, because exercise blunts hunger. Sometimes when we're so busy and in a schedule, going from classes to rehearsals to performances, and just exercise in general, the body will shunt our blood away from our stomach and rather to our muscles and our extremities. So that is probably why you feel hungrier now that you're dancing less. It sounds counterintuitive, but that is probably why.
Yeah, well, there you go. That is. But now that I'm back in the studio, I am waking up still. Big breakfast for me. I have eggs almost like pretty much every morning, but when there's like the day that I just can't, like a tortilla with tomatoes, bacon, and spinach, and that kind of switches it up. Oh, and avocado. Lunches are usually like, I love tuna salad. Probably sickening how much I eat. but
I happen to love it too, though. It is pretty good, especially with like whole grain crackers or even just on a sandwich. It's really good.
Spinach and then with avocado on it. I love avocado. And then dinners are usually some kind of protein, and then I will do like, Brussels sprouts, asparagus, something like that. And maybe like a sweet potato if I'm.
Yeah, I mean, it sounds like everything is pretty balanced. Again, like I said, with those 3 macronutrients, thinking about your protein, thinking about your carbohydrates, and even a source of fat with your avocados. So I love that. That's great. Now, question, when you are actually performing and in your performance season, how do you handle those late night performances when it comes to eating later in the day?
So we wake up, breakfast, and then we'll have like, class rehearsals. And then there's that odd time, like finishing around 3, and then you don't go 7. So like usually right after rehearsal finishes around 3, I'll have like a lunch.
Planning around performances, I find, can be so difficult because the performance ends so late. At the same time, you don't want to go into a performance where, remember earlier when you said like you just felt like it slowed you down having that heavy meal beforehand. So I love hearing again what sounds like it's like you have this big balanced breakfast, you have this big balanced dinner after the show as a recovery situation, and then before the show it's more just trying to find smaller snacks that are gonna really help fuel you, energize you, but not weigh you down. Do you ever feel like you need a snack midway in a show?
I always try to make myself like every intermission, especially if it's like I'm changing, I'll like have a banana or just or nuts, just something to like pop in my mouth. And whether it's a lot, like, cause I do, get the nervy stomach thing where like I can't really hold anything down.
Right.
I'll still try to make myself have at least something.
Yeah, makes a lot of sense. I mean, I think that's also the consensus I hear is fruit, nuts, dried fruit. These items, I mean, they're easy to keep backstage, easy to literally just like pop in your mouth while you're having a costume change, and just going to give you that little bit of energy that you need. So, Beckanne, I know you're teaching right now, aren't you?
Off and on.
How is that? How's teaching? Do you ever come across situations where you feel like you have to help a dancer if they're struggling with like their food or their body image, or has that not really been something that you've come across?
I typically like won't reach out. As a person, you have to be in the right mental state to talk about it in a way. So I mean, I am happy to talk to people, but I let the kids come to me want to talk about it or ask questions.
Really trying to harvest this environment over there that's very inclusive and showing younger dancers that having a certain body type shouldn't be the determining factor of whether or not they can have a professional career as a dancer.
Yeah.
Really trying to just stay motivated with your technique and your abilities on stage. So, Beckanne, I'd love to ask you how you would define what exactly a healthy dancer is.
To me, I mean, the first thing that comes to mind, a healthy dancer is a strong dancer. And I just feel like it's about balance. And I think it's completely different for every dancer. Like, no, I mean, some people, what I do wouldn't work for them. I think it's about finding what works for you. And so I would just say a healthy dancer is confident.
I think what you're trying to say, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, is that a healthy dancer has balance with their physical health, with being strong, but you're not going to achieve that if you don't have balance with your mental health and your emotional health. And I think a lot of dancers don't realize how important it is to have and work on their mental health and even their emotional health, making sure that they are choosing, like you said earlier, a lifestyle that is practical and sustainable. Like right now, taking 3 dance classes a day is not practical and sustainable for you. That's not going to like make you happy, you personally. And I think it's really amazing that you're owning up to that. And I want dancers to see that you can still be a professional dancer and have periods where you're taking some time and honoring your mental health over the physical health, right?
I think it's important to step away sometimes. Like
Mhm.
I like this time taking a step back has showed me how much I truly love it. And
Yes.
spoken to other people, I know of some other people who have realized that this isn't what they want to do.
Mhm.
So I think this time has been like we just have to look at the positive.
Mhm. Mhm. Yeah, makes so much sense. I can definitely relate to the idea of having to, in the past, had step away from dance when I pursued my this career as a dietitian. It really made me realize how much I actually do love ballet, where I was heading down this road of um, putting too much pressure on myself, and it was turning my love for ballet into just this thing that I just didn't love anymore. And I realized taking the two steps back made me go one step forward, realizing that no, this is what I love and I want to stay in this community and continue to dance. So I think COVID has forced a lot of dancers to actually start reassessing that.
Yeah,
Right.
definitely.
Beckanne, it has been such a pleasure speaking to you.
Thank you so much for having me. It's been a pleasure to talk
Yeah,
to you.
you're welcome. And like I said, just for everyone listening, it's very refreshing to hear Beckanne talk about and open up about being patient with herself and her body and being patient with this situation that we're in that we have zero control over. And trusting that dance will come back and that normalcy that we once knew will come back. It might take some time, but we just have to be patient with the process.